evening, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Pardon Our Picks, where perfection is a work in progress. I'm your host, Sam. As always, with us today is the Orange Bomber is back. How you doing tonight, Tarik?
I'm back. Happy to be back. Sorry I missed last week, everybody. Didn't want to give anybody a virus over this video or anything. So healthy, stronger, ready for some football. How about you, buddy? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, and I'm glad that none of us got any viruses this past week from you being sick. Of course, we probably could have been healed by Football Jesus, who is also back. Welcome back, Football Jesus.
Praise be unto me, and it's glad to be back. It's so good to see all of your smiling faces again.
Of course, with us, as always, is Jessica. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing okay. Yeah. I think last week you and me pretty much rocked it, Although we had a little bit of help from the little ones.
From the cutest cast ever.
Absolutely.
You just can't see how cute Brady and I are with our beards.
Fair.
Well,
I do look like a child when I'm clean shaven, so
I mean, you
Same
could have put a beard on Sammy and Emmett, and that would just be creepy. But we, of course, are brought to you by Aardvark Concepts. Aardvark Concepts, more than just a sign shop. And into deep of Glen Burnie of Maryland. Catch them next weekend. This weekend. Saturday, the November 12th at Sidelines Sports Bar in Glen Burnie. 8 p.m. show. Go check them out. It'll be a good show. Speaking of a good show, NFL season, we're in week 10. Every team has played at least half their games. So, gotta ask, what is the biggest surprise of the first half? We're going to start with football, Jesus.
This was kind of an open question, and I really like it because you can kind of go either way. I'm going to lean more positive this week, and I'm going to say the New York Giants. That division that they're playing in right now is just on fire. I mean, even the Commanders are looking better each week, but the Giants continually to find ways to win when they don't really have a star-studded cast. I mean, Daniel Jones is a middle-of-the-road quarterback. They don't have a top-flight receiving core. They do have a top running back, but their line's not that great. Their defense is pretty good, but they're just finding ways to win. And with as hotly contested as that division is, it's the only way that they're going to stay in the race for a potential wild card. But I've got to say that out of the entire field, the one that I am most pleasantly surprised with is the New York Giants. And I think Brian Dable or however you say his last name has really given that city something to rally around.
What about you, Jessica?
So first, I do agree with Brady. Though I definitely look a little bit at their record and who they've played and how those teams were playing at that point. And I'm a little bit less impressed, but considering where they came from and considering the fact that they don't have many studs on their team, I agree. But I would go in the opposite direction with a negative, and that would be the Raiders. Everybody expected them to be, just a menace in the West this year. And Devontae Adams, Derek Carr used to look way better than he does now. Josh Jacobs is really the only one putting up any numbers, it seems like. And they've done what are they, 1-7? 2-6, something like that. They have an extremely losing season. Not many teams are behind them. I believe there's only 2 teams that are actually have less wins than them. But they are one of like 4 teams that's only won like 2 games, I believe. I just didn't expect that. I'm not going to say that I expected them to go to the Super Bowl or anything, but everybody expected them to be at least above 500, if not doing a little bit better than that. And it's pretty shocking to see not only that their record is as terrible as it is, but watching them play is rough. So to have Devontae Adams on your team and to have absolutely no use for him because of what a mess the team is pretty shocking to me.
All right. So I got two of my co-hosts, one positive, one negative. Usually I try to be a pretty positive guy, but I can't with my next pick. I'm going to stick with Jess with the AFC West and hit a note I've hit too many times on this here program. I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos. I know it's shocking, but I mean, it's almost the copy and paste of what Jess said. Everyone expected more. You had this big trade. Denver traded half their team away to get Russell Wilson, a Super Bowl level quarterback. They got a new coach who just brought in hope because we'd have crappy coaches after crappy coaches and crappy QBs, and it just did not go well. And they had a decent core, maybe not the best, had a decent running back. And what have they done? They're not even at 500. They're not producing. Even if they win, it's piddly. It's just not a good show for what anybody wants to see or expect from Denver from years in the past. And it's just, you can't tell where the problem is. Is Russell Wilson washed up? Is Nathaniel Hackett not as good as everyone thought he was going to be? Is he good? Just stop play calling? Don't know. Denver's another one of those that's supposed to be defensive like Baltimore, and they're not putting up the numbers there. So this is just, if we're talking about just surprises and expectations versus reality, I think this is one of those top teams up there.
All great selections, in my opinion. I would have to go with Geno Smith as my biggest surprise of the first half. Nobody expected him to step into Russell Wilson's role and then do it better.
And beat him.
Absolutely. He's been putting up pretty good numbers. He does have a good contingent of wide receivers. He's got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, who was one of which was underutilized last year by Russell Wilson. Maybe it's an indication that Russell Wilson is going down and it was Russell Wilson dragging that team down as opposed to the team itself dragging him down. Geno has proven that he can still play in this league, which is surprising because most people wrote him off after he got punched in the face as a New York Jet quarterback.
Don't they all, though?
It's true. 90% of the New York Jet quarterbacks tend to come out of New York and be pretty terrible. So,
yeah, I'm sure Zach Wilson's been punched in the face by a husband or two.
Probably. He's that guy. But this whole team and to have them 2 games up in the division, well, 1.5 at least, up in the division is mighty impressive for a division that everybody going into the season thought was one of the stronger divisions in the league, and had them in dead last for the entirety, for their picks. So he's done well. Pete Carroll has done well in that division this year, and it's just crazy to me, that he's proven himself so good. So, speaking of crazy, we had a little bit of a change last week where we had the little ones on. Let's see how they did in comparison to the rest of us. So,
Ooh, look who's still in front.
by 1.
It counts.
That's true. You're still ahead. So
I'm getting closer.
not really.
I am.
Are you?
I am.
Are you
Hey,
sure?
that's one game. I got plenty of time.
1 game on somebody, but not everybody.
Is it one game on me?
Yeah, that's one game on you.
Sammy, I got a full contingent of games out of Sammy, so he was 5-8 last week. I think, but Emmett did pretty good. Went 5-2. Both the boys got at least 5 wins. Yeah. Unfortunately, I never got a full contingent of picks from Emmett, so we'll just never know how.
He lives by his own rules. He was not about to make those picks for me.
We'll never know how good he could have been. He could have went 11-2. You never know. But Jessica currently still in the lead by 1. But I'm right there. And everything's pretty much status quo at this point. And speaking of status quo, football Jesus, let's get to your game of the week.
Well, there's no Tiger King this week, but there is a lion and a bear because my game of the week is the Detroit Lions against the Chicago Bears.
Oh my.
And this is my status quo of picking a game that on paper doesn't look that exciting, but I think there's potential here. I mean, Justin Fields has been one of the top 3 performing quarterbacks in the last 3 weeks. But Detroit's defense looked phenomenal last week when they've looked absolutely abysmal the entire season. So I don't think I think that was more of an anomaly and more on Aaron Rodgers. But the Detroit Lions have got heart. They have been in every single game they have played this season. But I think the Chicago Bears are going to walk away with this one, but 1-score game, just because they're finally starting to use Justin Fields, his skill set to the best of their ability with the play calling and forming an offense around him instead of trying to get him to form to an offense. I mean, he ran for a record-setting 178 yards last week and really utilized his legs to keep the ball moving against a tough Miami front and really kept him in the game until the very last drive. So I expect this to be a very closely and hotly contested game because Detroit's playing for pride. And honestly, when you have nothing else to lose, it's kind of the most dangerous team to go against. But like I said, I think I have Chicago in this one by a touchdown.
Yeah, so I actually agree with a lot of that. I've been watching Justin Fields in the beginning of the season. The play calling really did not use his skill set. And it finally seems like they're starting to gain some traction. So I think the Bears are somebody that you really shouldn't sleep on right now. Whereas in the alternative side of things, Detroit knows how to lose a game. They also just traded away Hawkinson. We saw how that went last week. You can never bet on Detroit at this point. And, I expect there to be quite a spread. I think it's going to be 30-20 Chicago. And I think Fields is going to have a big game.
I really can't disagree with anything that was said. This is like Detroit's looked a little better, but their record, I mean, neither one of these records are great, but Chicago's showing up just a little bit better, looking better. You guys hit on all the points with this game. So I agree. I'm going with Chicago.
Detroit Lions, yeah, they won 15-8 or 9 last week against the Green Bay Packers, a team that threw interceptions at the end zone twice last week. It was Green Bay pretty much shot themselves in the foot. I had picked the Lions last week to win. They won. I was happy to see that. But the manner in which they won wasn't so much them as Green Bay not exactly clicking on all cylinders. The Chicago Bears the past 2 weeks have utilized the run game with the quarterback running the ball more so than the running backs. He's gotten incredible amount of yards. He actually broke Michael Vick's single game record for rushing yards in a game. And he wasn't as much of a running quarterback in college. So I don't think there was precedent set when he came out of college and wasn't much of a running quarterback. Mind you, he was able to get away from people in college. The past couple of years, he has had to run for his life behind a pretty bad offensive line. I think now maybe they decided to try something different. They try to let him run the ball. It's worked out well for him so far. They've put up a good amount of points that people have had a hard time stopping him from running. And I think that continues this week with the Chicago Bear victory. I would say it's going to be close, actually. I think it's going to be within a touchdown. So, and that being said, let's get on to the next game. Our Jessica, what is your game of the week?
My game of the week is super exciting. I have the Buffalo Bills and Minnesota Vikings. So these two teams have a little bit of history going on here, and some serious competition. Stephon Diggs used to play for the Minnesota Vikings, where he was a little underutilized. And, obviously he's one of the greats now in Buffalo. But Minnesota found their own, unique Stephon Diggs version in Justin Jefferson, and he's actually beating him in yards. This is going to be an awesome game to watch. I'm also a little bit concerned because of Josh Allen potentially needing Tommy John surgery. The last that I heard, he was getting a second opinion, but obviously not career ending. But that does mean that he's going to be playing with some discomfort, which we saw him doing at the end of the last game. Man, I actually don't remember who I picked in this game, but I think it would be the Bills. But I do think it's going to be a very close game. And yeah, it was the Bills. I do think it's going to be a very close game. I just think the Bills all around, both teams are phenomenal. Both teams' records show how they've been playing. But after last week, the Bills struggling a little bit, and I think they're going to come back. It's going to be more of a revenge game for some of the players on the Bills, like Stephon Diggs. And even with the Minnesota Vikings picking up some new talent like Hawkinson, I think the Bills are going to walk away with this one, but it will be close. It will be a shootout, and it will be wild to watch. This should be a primetime game, but I don't think it is. I think it's like a 4:00 game or something, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a 1:00 game this week.
1:00.
Yeah, no. They did flex a different game out to Sunday night. It was the Chargers game.
Yeah, instead of the Steelers Bengals or something.
Probably a good choice to
Yeah,
take them out.
for sure.
All right, yeah. So this is not one I'm very familiar with, so I'm just gonna kind of shoot from the hip here. Trying to find out any info, but the only thing mainly is Allen's injury and how much it's going to affect everything. I was looking at just the skewing of this prediction for the game, and it's skewed heavily in the Bills' favor. I think just with the way, just watching recaps week after week, the Bills have generally looked better, and this is at home for them. They got home field advantage. Pretty much just agree with everything Jess has said. And I'm going with the Bills.
I think it should also be noted that the Bills are a consistent team. They play consistently, whereas Minnesota tends to be kind of a roller coaster ride. They come out hot, they lose the lead, then they come back and win. And I don't think the Bills are going to let them do that.
Well, there's one problem that I'm seeing with this, and both of you have mentioned it, and it's Josh Allen's injury to his ulnar collateral ligament, which even if it is a small tear, that is the ligament in the arm that allows pitchers, and now we're seeing quarterbacks get really that zip on the ball. So even if Josh Allen is able to play, I don't see the Bills being able to stretch the field as much as they would if Josh Allen was healthy. And when they have a shorter field to work with, I feel like the opposing defense is going to have an easier time keying in on those key players like Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie. And the Bills really don't have all that good of a run game. And if Josh Allen is playing injured, they're not going to let him run the ball, I don't think. So I've actually picked the Vikings in this one due to that, whether Josh Allen actually plays or not, because no matter the severity of the injury to the UCL, the more he throws, the more that is going to get injured. So I honestly see the Bills sitting Josh Allen this game, no matter what the prognosis is. And the Vikings really leaning on Dalvin Cook and the run game early to beat up the Bills defense. And then in the second half, spreading the field out with TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson. If this was a healthy Josh Allen, it'd be a different story. But hearing that he's got something going on with his UCL, I'm just not confident that they're going to have enough. And he's going to have enough in his arm to really spread the ball around.
This is an interesting game. It was actually kind of hard to pick because of the Josh Allen injury. Now, mind you, there is another aspect of the Minnesota Miracle that's going to be rehashed here a little bit. Not only is Stephon Diggs going against the Vikings, but Case Keenum, if he steps in as quarterback, will also be going against him. He's the guy that threw it to Stephon Diggs in that Minnesota Miracle. So he'll be back against his old team. Now, Case Keenum's a pretty serviceable backup. Playing in Buffalo this year, a good team. They picked up Nyheim Hines last week, who didn't really play last week. A couple of punt returns, but that was about it. And giving him time to get acclimated to the game, acclimated to the team. Makes sense. The Vikings, however, they played the Washington Commanders, and for most of the game, were behind against what should have been a very inferior team. The Vikings are 7-1. They're supposed to be a good team, but they can't put away the bad teams like a good team should. They're playing down to their competition. Now, Buffalo is not really playing down to it. I think Buffalo, with the addition of Nyheim Hines, probably getting some offensive work this week. Case Keenum probably playing, and mind you, the UCL injury is actually the same one Josh Allen had in his rookie season. He sat out 4 games because of it. He didn't get surgery. He just sat out 4 games. He could be back sooner rather than later, considering they know the extent of if they know the extent of the damage, they know what he can handle. I see Buffalo coming out of this one. It's going to be a close game because Josh Allen is not there to run the ball like a, running quarterback does. And it's going to be a really exciting game, in my opinion. So look for this one to be in the 20s for each team, with Buffalo coming out on top.
All right.
All right, now let's move on to the Orange Bombers game of the week.
All right. So I got the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Seattle Seahawks. So this should be a good game, kind of middle of the road based on records here. Nothing the best. I think this is an interesting matchup, partly based on what we touched on earlier, Sam's point with Geno Smith. You got Geno Smith and DK Metcalf going with the Seattle Seahawks, bringing them up, being a big surprise. And then you got surprising the other way, Tom Brady, Julio Jones, not doing so much. Tom Brady, not going to crap on his personal life or anything else, but just he's not performing up to expectations. Looked a little better last week. Still not great, still not up to, as we keep talking about this week, expectations. So this is a big toss-up. Seattle, pretty good at blocking against wide receivers. That's Tom's main go-to here. So I actually changed my pick. So, because I know who I picked, and then doing some more research into what was going on, I've changed it a little bit. I'm changing from Tampa Bay to Seattle. I'm picking them. I don't think it's going to be a big margin. I think it's going to be close, but I think they're doing better. I'm trusting Geno Smith, and DK Metcalf is back this week. I'm trusting them a little bit more than I'm going to trust like Tom Brady with just the mess that he's been this year. So I'm going with Seattle.
So this one was kind of tough for me, and I keep saying to like friends and coworkers and stuff, I don't think I've ever seen a team that drops as many passes as it does. And initially I was saying, Tom Brady looks a little rough, but honestly, the closer I look, these receivers, holy crap. Every game, there's 4 or more dropped passes that are dimes thrown to them, like in these very tight windows. And it's amazing to me. Or they're missing their routes or whatever. It's looking really bad. And these are top-notch players. So to me, like I keep waiting every week, like, all right, this is the week that they all step up. If they do, they'll win most of these matchups. This one would be included. So for me, I'm still kind of flip-flopping on whether or not I think it's going to end up being Tampa Bay, but I did choose Seattle because I think they're a much more consistent team. Obviously, they've taken these heavier matchups, these better teams, and they've shown that they're here to play. They can beat them. They know how to structure their play calling for their opponent, and in this case, they'll do that with Tom Brady constantly having to throw the ball because they have no run game, and the receivers, tight ends getting slight pressure, causing them to drop every pass. So that's all they're going to have to do. Tom Brady's going to get the ball out super quickly. They're not going to be catching the ball. They're going to be dropping it left and right like they've been doing all season. So I am going to go with the Seahawks, but I think it's going to be really close, and there is a chance I'll change my mind. So
I'm going to add in, and I completely forgot about this factor and just didn't mention it either, but I didn't realize that this was the UK game.
yeah, this is Germany.
This is the Germany game. So that adds, I'm not changing my pick, but that adds a whole nother factor to like both teams traveling overseas into Germany.
Yeah.
So I'm going to agree with both of my co-hosts here. But I think the main thing that I looked at when I was picking this game is the teams that have really beaten Tampa Bay have been able to run the ball. And the LA Rams have shown a complete lack of ability, whether that be on the play calling, the O-line, the running backs, what have you, to consistently produce running the ball. And my humble pick for Rookie of the Year is Kenneth Walker of Seattle. I mean, once he took over as the lead back in Seattle, he's done nothing but put up monster games week after week after week. So I really see him putting up potentially 130 plus yards in this game, because that is Seattle's key to victory. Is, as Jess mentioned before, Tampa Bay can't catch the ball. So if Seattle is able to take large chunks of time off of the clock and force Tampa Bay to throw the ball, then Seattle's just going to get the ball right back. I mean, Scotty Miller had one hit him square in the face in the end zone, and he dropped it. I mean, I'm pretty sure my gangly butt could have done that. But, and as Sam mentioned earlier, Geno Smith has been playing far and beyond I think even he could believe he could do this year, being the surprise of really every team. So I pick Seattle in this one, and I don't think it's going to be close, because I think Seattle's going to be able to run the clock out no problem.
This is the first regular season game in Munich, in Germany, anywhere other than London, really, or, you know, a North American place. Quite frankly, Seattle has to travel a very long distance to get there. It's going to be rough on them. Tampa Bay.
It's not that much further.
Hmm?
It's not that much further.
Than
In Florida?
It's a difference of 287 miles.
from England, right?
The Seahawks will be flying 5,283 miles from Seattle to Munich, while the Buccaneers will be flying 4,996. It's a difference of 280.
Yeah, so Seattle's just got to go straight across, whereas they got to go up and then
Around.
Well,
And they're going to
given
meet in
that-
the middle for a football game.
that does make things a little easier, a little more even for them. However, Seattle in the past has had problems coming to the East Coast and playing games. They've had problems playing East Coast teams because of the time difference for that team as opposed to at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay plays 4 hours earlier. They're used to it. Seattle plays later games because they're on the West Coast. So they're not used to that time clock. Now, going so many time zones past what they're used to, it's going to be harder for them. However, Tom Brady has struggled. They did beat a team last week in the Rams that has been pretty bad. Their defense has been good at times, not great. Bend, don't break, but quite often they break, you know, like an old man's hip. Quite frankly, I think that Seattle, after struggling a little bit in the first half, does actually get the victory here. It's going to be close in the end, but I think Seattle, with that run game, Kenneth Walker has been doing great. I think that they pull it out in Munich for that first overseas victory for them. All right. Now let's get on to my game of the week. And this one's going to be a bit of an interesting one because I have the Atlanta Falcons going against the Carolina Panthers.
Taking a page out of Brady's book.
Kind of. This is a Thursday night game. I feel like Atlanta has played pretty good in the past week. However, I didn't pick this game because Atlanta's been playing decent in the past couple of weeks. I picked this game because the last time they met, it came down to overtime in a crazy game between the two of them. And for some reason, between these two, the road team has always won in the past 8 meetings. It's been a little nutty. Atlanta going into Carolina going back to PJ Walker this week. Their defense has, well, they completely broke last week against Joe Mixon and the Cincinnati Bengals. Atlanta's got Algier, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, who's been doing decent. Cordell Patterson is coming back, maybe not this week, but he's coming back soon. And of course, Marcus Mariota, who he's been doing okay. He needs to get better at closing out games. They had a chance this past week to go over 500, and they couldn't close it out. I think that the Atlanta Falcons actually win this game in another crazy kind of matchup where they get to 500 in that division, maintaining, in my opinion, first place in that division because I think Tampa loses. So
I agree with Sam. I know I've come out as a Marcus Mariota hater this year, but after watching that crazy game against Carolina, it kind of more solidified my feeling is that, sure, he looks good, but he can't finish games. I mean, that key interception let Carolina get right into field goal range, and if not for their kicker being unable to perform under pressure, Atlanta would be not tied for first place at this point. But given how Carolina's defense, who they fought so vehemently to keep key pieces on during the trade deadline, looked last week against Cincinnati, and how PJ Walker played the entire first half and then got benched for Baker Mayfield, who had the worst QBR in the league in the second half. I don't believe Carolina has got another victory in them this season, so I'm going with Atlanta begrudgingly. But like Sam said, this could be one of those games where Carolina pulls out all the trick and gadget plays and fake punts and who knows what else, but I can't wait to watch it.
So I'm siding with a lot of what you guys have said. I think I mentioned I had Atlanta as one of my games of the week one of these times. So I had mentioned their rushing or their running game being one of the tops. I think it's like top 4 or 5 in the league right now. And I mean, obviously Carolina's been struggling with a number of things. The place that Atlanta tends to struggle is their pass defense. But they're going up against Carolina. So I'm not too worried about it, to be honest. After the trade deadline, everything got mixed up. I am kind of shocked to see anybody really picking Carolina in this matchup. And Atlanta's really hung out in each of their matchups with solid teams. It's coming down to the last couple of minutes every week. It's, a hard fought win or loss for Atlanta. And I think this one's going to be kind of a gimme for them. I think it's going to be maybe not a huge gap in scores, maybe more like a touchdown, like a 13-21 game or 20 game. But I'm taking Atlanta here.
All right. I really can't disagree with anything that's been said. The only question I have is, do we know who's starting for Carolina after they benched?
PJ Walker. They've announced it already.
They
already
said they're
announced
going
it.
with PJ Walker, but I think this may be the game where Sam Darnold could take over because
Yeah, I was just looking who the
so-
backup. I was literally just looking. I'm like, okay, well, if they're not going with Baker Mayfield, oh, they have Sam Darnold. Okay,
Maybe a short leash.
two names who used to be at the front of QBs for a while. So, I mean, that will that make a difference? I don't know. With everything else Carolina has going against them, I'm just going with Atlanta on this. I don't really. I agree with Jess the way she phrased it. Like, how can you not? And it's not like it's a great team versus a terrible team. It's two somewhat terrible teams that Atlanta's just a little bit better and more consistent. I guess it just barely scraping by. So I'm going
The
with
crazy thing is 2 fluke weeks and Carolina's right back in the playoff hunt. That's all it takes.
Yeah,
As
because I
bad
mean,
as they
it
have
happening.
looked.
if you're tied for first place and you're not even at 500, I mean that's
But the question is, do you see them doing that?
Any given Sunday. I mean, at this point, who knows? I mean, they took Atlanta to the wire last time they played with PJ Walker, and if DJ Moore didn't get that pseudo foul, that game's over.
I'm on board with any given Sunday. A miracle can happen, sure. But as far as consistent play or these two teams lining up, I think it's pretty clear who the better team is.
Oh, I agree. I'm just saying the happenstance is there for Carolina to make a move.
Absolutely. And with that being said, I did, in the spirit of our picks today, make a change to my pick. My original pick was the Carolina Panthers. I did change it to the Atlanta Falcons mid-pick.
I'm not the only one that changes my pick.
I think most of us have changed our pick at some point today or within the past couple of weeks. So ignore that Carolina Panther symbol over there. I have the Falcons. I have changed it on my picks.
Ignore my Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Perfection's a work in progress, people. We're still working on the merch.
Of course, there was one actual pick on this one that's different, and it is the Minnesota Vikings. Football, Jesus.
Just seeing how pitchers do before they get Tommy Johns watching baseball. If it's that serious for Josh Allen, they're not going to be able to throw the ball.
Could be, but Case Keenum, I think, fills in admirably.
I don't know. He looked pretty bad against the Titans when they gave him an entire quarter.
Give him a whole game. Of course, speaking of those Titans, this one's a complete. Everybody's got the same stuff on this one.
They were kind of a surprise last week. I mean, they went blow for blow with Kansas City, relying on solely the run game because Malik Willis can't throw the ball.
And the defense had them rolling for a little bit too. So,
and yeah,
there is a couple of differences here. I picked the Colts simply because they made the change at coach. Mind you,
Oh
they
yeah, I
fired
didn't think about
Frank
that.
Reich.
Yeah. Will that make a difference?
I think that's a tanking move.
Sometimes
100%.
Sometimes it's a kick, it's a jolt, it's a change.
I think it'll be a good change overall. I don't think it's going to be an immediate swing.
No, I see that because what other former players currently on their staff? Is it Marvin Harrison?
Say that again. What was the question?
There's another former player on the Colts coaching staff right now.
Ooh.
I was just talking to a coworker about this today. Hold on.
As a former Colts fan, I should know this.
I don't know. But Jeff Saturday getting the nod at coach for interim coach without really a lot of coaching experience. He has 3 years of coaching experience at the high school level right now, but has worked as a consultant with.
Oh, it is Jeff Saturday. Okay.
Reggie Wayne.
Oh, Reggie Wayne's on there?
Reggie Wayne is the wide receivers coach. And I
yeah.
was talking to a coworker about this today. I truly believe that Jeff Saturday is a band-aid, a scapegoat, if you will, for the Indianapolis Colts tanking to get better draft picks. And then they're going to name Reggie Wayne as someone who the fans can get behind and someone who is respected in the league to be their head coach next season.
Yeah, this is to me like this was a tough game because these are both pretty horrible teams right now. But I went with the Raiders because this is their most winnable matchup.
Agreed.
Really. So if they're gonna do it, they have to do
It
it.
has to be this week. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Jeff Saturday. There's been a lot going on with the Raiders or the Colts recently, and it's just their offensive line. There's a ton of every week it seems like there's something new with them, and it's just they're a mess right now. So the Raiders need to step up barely, but I think it's gonna happen.
Talk about two teams that are going in a bad direction real fast.
Brady, it's complete side panel, complete side note. When you nod and your hair bounces, you look like Animal from the Muppets.
Drums.
You're just
drums,
like Animal
drums.
Drum. Like you just the way you nodded to Jess, it just made me giggle. So
No, I mean, I agree with what she's saying, though. It's like at the beginning, if you go back and talk about it, I mean, the Raiders division, I feel like everyone was looking at to be what the Cowboys division is this year as being one of the best in the league. And really only the Chiefs have been winning games in that division. So if the Raiders are going to make any shot at the playoffs, you have to beat the Colts. And if they don't, count them out.
Yeah, I think they're pretty much done for the season. That being said, of course, a split on the Arizona Rams game because the Rams are just a terrible team, and it's hard to predict what they're going to do from week to week.
And the Cardinals can't seem to stop fighting with each other because one week Kyler Murray's arguing with his coach. The next week he's arguing with the best receiver in the league, in my opinion, in DeAndre Hopkins. So who knows who he's going to argue with this week, but I think they've got more talent just as a team. That's kind of where I went with on that pick.
Yeah, I didn't know that he had a Stephon Diggs' number.
Yeah.
Only because DeAndre Hopkins got busted for PEDs.
All right, and then of course our two Sunday night, Monday night games completely.
Unanimous.
It's really hard to pick against those teams with the teams they're playing.
Yeah, I mean, given the playbook they kind of opened up for Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco, it's at this point he may win MVP over Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts has an extremely easy schedule for the rest of the year. So it's going to be hard to pick against him for really any game unless they decide to sit him once they've already locked up the division.
I was really hoping there was going to be a matchup of those two teams in the regular season.
What, the Eagles and the Washington Commanders? Because they do it twice a year.
No, the Eagles and the 49ers. That will be a fun game to watch.
If it happens in the playoffs, absolutely.
That's where we're going to get it. And I think that's where we're going to see whether the Eagles are for the first time. We'll see if the Eagles offense is for real or not.
Well, the Eagles have to win the division in order to do that, and they're off to a hot start for that. So that's it.
all right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Very good to be back with me and Brady. Welcome us back. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave us a like, leave us a comment, tell us your picks, tell us how you think we did. Subscribe so you know when we drop these videos. And again, thank you guys so much. And as always, I'm Tarik.
I'm Jessica.
I'm Football Jesus.
And I'm Sam. And you have a great football week.
Bye, guys.